This broadcast is inappropriate for all ages, right here on hashtag WeAreMovieClub. Salutations, I am Camerai, and I am conversation ready. This week, or this episode, or this podcast, whatever you want to call it, is La La Land. Emma Stone, Ryan Gosling, and I'm going to be completely honest, I really honestly think this is the first good movie that we've done this year on We Are Movie Club. It's fantastic. This is the epitome of what We Are Movie Club was originally intended to be. It's I saw this movie, it's so good I have to share it with you type of thing. It's a beautiful piece of art. It has cinematographic qualities that are way above par. Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone are both very pretty to look at. It's just got so much going for it in so many places. The music direction's great. The choreography, there's really nothing I can point at and go, this sucks. I want it better. Even the ending is good. Even if it's not great, it's almost exactly what it needs to be. And I don't know what that missing element is for me to take it from good to great. But I really like it. So let's go ahead and jump into it, because I have a feeling I'm going to rant a couple times during this, and my notes get a little depth in places. So I'll try to do my best to keep it shorter than I think it's going to be. But we open on LA traffic, and if you haven't been to LA, it can stand still. But I don't think I've ever seen it gridlocked like that. It's always moving. It's just the amount of volume that's moving is crazy. And I really like their on and off ramp system over there. They definitely paced it out right. We got something right by the time we got to the end of the country. Because in the East, it's really kind of like an afterthought, if you will. So, this flash mob style musical erupts, and it's a really good way to introduce you to, hey, this shit's gonna happen in this movie. If you don't like it, get the fuck out. And it's really well done. It's not done with any of the main characters, or either of the main characters. There's really only two. I'd say there's two primary characters. There's a set of supporting characters for each of the two primary characters. And then everybody else is essentially some level of an extra. And the supporting characters would be her friends, his sister, and his boss that he pisses off, Cave Johnson. But they're in traffic, of course. Ryan Gosling's listening to this audio tape of jazz, and he's rewinding it and listening to it over and over and over again to try to pick out the notes and the rhythm. Exactly how it was done, and sometimes jazz is done a little bit more freeform, but you can still record a jazz song and have it go over. So if you're a musician, you're already familiar with this process of listen, review, record. It's oh, what are they doing here? Okay, I think I got it. Let's record a little bit. Let me listen to my version. And it's just honing craft. So it's not apparent from the movie, but we don't need this whole expositional setup to explain that. That's what he's doing. We'll get to the explanation later. And part of the reason he's even doing that is because traffic is gridlocked, and then Emma Stone, on top of it, is practicing her lines, and she's just sitting in traffic when she could go, finally. And they kind of pull a little bit of misdirection there, which I thought was funny. They have her, looking like she's talking on the phone, and then she's like, what the fuck's the line? Which is just a fun way to look at actors to me. But they have, so the whole point of the scene is they have a very antagonistic start to the relationship. If we had a narrator in this, it would be and this was the first time they laid eye on each other. But we go to some cafe where Emma Stone's a barista, and she's trying to leave early for an audition. She goes back to get her script or whatever so she can run lines at the car, which don't do that if you can help it. And then, of course, she's not paying attention, which it seems insane that this would happen. And the dude spills coffee all over her white shirt. And, of course, the idea is that there's an outfit for this that everybody at the audition's wearing. And we don't get that reveal. They kind of hide that from us. They actually show her doing the audition in a parka, like a winter coat for whatever reason. I don't even know why she owns a winter coat. It's fucking LA. The coldest it gets is like 60 degrees. It doesn't really snow there, and if it does, it's a freaking miracle. So she shouldn't ever need that heavy a coat. What are you doing? Stop moving the microphone. And again, she nails it. The perfect clean cry, while people are doing other stuff, while they're ignoring her. Like, I don't see how you don't hire that person on the spot. And granted, it's Emma Stone. We know that she's a great actress. But she didn't gear it down for her character, because her character's supposed to be like a starting actress. She gave us Emma Stone's audition for that role while everybody's going on to show exactly how talented we're supposed to have the perception of her. So to me, it's hilarious in its own. But oh my god, like, it's such a good scene. Like, I'm sure there's a clip on YouTube. Go watch that scene. Watch the whole movie, but, like, watch that if you don't have time. And just nothing comes of it. It's so sad. And, like, back home, it turns out that she's living with, like, 3 other girls. I'm sure they're all waitress actresses, whatever, because that's what a lot of people in that stage of life are there. It's just a funny bit of the culture. And they have this funny little musical in the house, and it's that leads out. It's all about, like, dragging her out. Like, she doesn't normally go out. That was the thing, is, like, she's by far, at least in my opinion, I want to feel this is a statistically objective statement, but by far she's probably the most attractive girl there, so it's like, I'm not, and everybody's different. Not everybody likes to go out, and I certainly don't, but yeah, you're looking at me. So, like, I just don't understand, like, the point of, like, having to drag her out. It's like, it's not like they don't regularly go out and have a good time. In fact, like, my perception is that they would kind of be willing to, like, leave her behind for once so that they could have top crack at whatever dudes they're trying to pick up. So that's just my little perspective on that. But, at the club, there's a fun montage of her not socializing. The song goes somber. Her car gets towed. I actually don't remember that happening. Obviously it did. I would have made the note otherwise. But so she starts walking, and she wanders in a jazz club. It's the whole mechanical premise for her wandering into the place where Gosling is playing. And then we flash back, because we have to get his side of the story. It's an interesting mechanic of how to meter out telling a story, especially with multiple pathways, in order. You can typically, I say typically people just follow one path, and then other things are happening in the background. Otherwise, you end up with like Snatch, or what's the more popular Christmas one? Crash, I think, is actually another one. A Lot Like Love. That doesn't sound right. There's a Christmas one where they do the same thing, and it's like 12 different stories that all mix, and they just bounce back and forth. So it relatively stays chronological throughout the entire movie. The other thing to do that's actually quite famous is in media res, where it's like you start in the middle, and the character doesn't know what's happening, and then at some point you flash back to get the beginning. And I've seen it go from middle, end, beginning, middle at the end. So, like, there's several different ways to approach this sort of thing. The Tarantino way, apparently, in Pulp Fiction, is to just rearrange it however the fuck you want, because no one has any context for where the beginning of the story is. But if you think back on it, the beginning of the story is actually the last arc, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. But that's where the best speech is, so that's why he did that. So in this, like, they tell her part, they rewind, they tell his part, they merge up, and so from the merge, they continue on the story until it splits again. And then they do a fun thing where it's like the what if it never split type thing. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's see. So shitty apartment. And I say shitty apartment, it's just bare. He's still got everything boxed up. He essentially has a room that he sleeps in and a piano that he plays. Those are the important parts of his his life there, and then he's got a special stool that he's mad that his sister's sitting on because his sister broke into his apartment, which apparently is like a regular thing. The animosity between him and his sister is nearly irrelevant to the movie, but it adds character to him. It shows us who he is as a character. So instead of like getting the establishing shot of it in direction, and like it becomes conversation of like who he is, where he's going, and so it just accents the plot instead of distracting from it, which I really like. It's very smooth because all the conversation that they're having there about his bills, his stool, jazz in general, him wanting to open his own club, it's all establishing and progressing at the same time. So especially since he's not interested in meeting someone because he only wants to talk about jazz. He's driving without insurance, so it shows exactly either how desperate a situation he's in or what he's willing to do what he does. The law be damned, if you will. And he tosses the number that he got, and he goes to play jazz because that's what he'd do. So at the little restaurant, the little club thing, the manager insists that Gosling plays the set list, even if it's boring to him. It's how do I explain this? The most objective way I think I can explain this is if you're a mathematician who does like theorized calculus, and then someone has you count beans all day. It's barely addition. So he's just bored all the time because he wants to play great things, but the general public doesn't normally appreciate what's great. They enjoy what's familiar, whether or not it's good. So that's the type of position that he's in, where he has to play these familiar, crazy things. And like, dude did a good job. He played it. He played a good song. Just because it's not like he yelled and screamed at everyone for not giving him a standing ovation. But in particular, when he does go off the set list finally, they give him a spotlight. They give him a transition to darkness, so it's focused. It's just him and the music, and like he becomes one with it. It becomes great, and they zoom in as it crescendos, and then it fades out as it starts coming down. You can probably symbolize this off to sex. I'm not going to do that today because it's not important. But like, just there's that zoom in at the peak and it zooms out. There's no applause, of course. He sees Emma walk in the door, who's Emma Stone's character. Sorry, that's not her name in the movie. She approaches him. Oh yeah, so the manager immediately fires him, and then she approaches him, which was so good for him. But of course, he just got fired, so he's not really like in the mood to meet people. It's just how it is. And he shoves right past her. She's confused because, wait, I'm hot. How do you just not talk to me? Meh. And then there's an audition montage of her going to audition to audition to audition. Sadly, that's the life. Until you find someone who's willing to let you act, and then that's your shot to prove yourself. So you have to prove yourself with the audience. It's a fucking ridiculous lifestyle, but people do it, and we enjoy it most of the time. So yay. Pool party. At this point, I did notice something about the wardrobe happening, especially Emma Stone's character. The wardrobe is done magnificently. She pops in every scene she's in, based off her wardrobe alone. There's lots of muted colors. She's in a yellow. There's lots of blue. She's in a red. There's lots of blue going on. She's in green. He typically is in like this suit and tie, but it's never like just, oh, I'm a businessman going to a business meeting, blah blah blah, I've got a briefcase. It's kind of like the cool hip thing, and maybe it's a Gosling effect too, but it's a cool hip suit, like casual wear type thing. And I don't think he ever wears a hat. I could be wrong, but he's always like well dressed comparatively to the other guys around him. So, like, they both stand out in their scenes, and it's obviously that's very much done on purpose. It's to draw your eye, and whether you realize it's happening or not, it's probably happening. And if you work really hard to look around at the other people, you'll see how muted their costumery is. Let's see. So at the pool party, for whatever reason, Emma blows off a guy. She accidentally finds Gosling. He's playing in an 80s cover band because Papa's gotta eat, right? Whatever. I can't believe I said it like that, but that's fine. And I guess she's mad at him for running off on her, or blowing her off, or not appreciating all this, however you want to phrase it in your head. All valid statements, to a point. The context really wasn't there. But, I mean, you take the opportunity for that small bit of revenge, I guess. She requests Iran. The point being, the joke is that, like, that's what he did. And she does this, like, really fun, like, lip sync for the first chorus or whatever to kind of mock at him. And then afterwards, he confronts her about Iran. Like, and I don't know if, like, he would have cared if it was anybody. And I don't know if he remembered her from the jazz club per se. No, he obviously did, because it's in the flashbacks later. It's just so funny. It's like asking, like, Iran from Serious Artist. He sounds like such a baby. It's just so funny. So, and then afterwards, she uses him to escape the other guy that she blew off earlier. Which I think she tries to get him to be his valet, like, and then they walk off together, so I don't know if the cover was intact or not. But the bench scene that's coming up here that I'm about to talk to, where the friction starts to melt, it's such a wonderful song scene, or musical scene, whatever you want to call it. I really like it. It's probably my second favorite scene in the entire movie, the first being Emma Stone's audition. Because it's just so good. But it's wonderfully contentious. Everything, even when they're coordinated, it's counter motion. If it's the same motion that it looks in sync, it's done in a manner in which it's like, well, you did that, I can do that. Anything you can do, I can do better. It's like a advanced version of that. And so, like, she even takes the time to sit on the bench and slip on tap shoes. And so they do the whole, like, in motion anti thing, and they actually dance. But it's very, it's very much, it looks like they're both leading, if you will. It's still done very smoothly. So they show that, like, they're both on equal footing. They both have similar interests, even if they're annoyed by the situation that they're in, and you kind of see the friction melt as they get to know each other through dancing in the scene that we're given. Now, there's every probability that, like, that scene was actually a conversation that they had, and that we were just seeing a musical representation of it. But it's so well done, and they get so close to the end, but they don't kiss because they're not quite there yet. They're not ready to admit to anyone other than themselves that they might actually like the other person. Plus, it gives kind of a reason to see them again. Oh man, he does open the door for her, no digits, which I was disappointed in because, like, even thinking back on it right now, because it's been a couple weeks as this is pre-recorded since I watched it over on Rabbit/Camera with other people, that like, how are they going to get it together? And of course, the next scene's at the cafe, and he shows up unannounced, even though it's like a Warner Brothers lot. So, I think the way he claimed he got in is he just ran past the gate guard, and so he's like, I probably got about 30 seconds before they find me. But that's an overture, if ever there was, you know? So they end up, she ends up taking a break or lunch or ends her shift, whatever it is, and they walk the lot, and there's like a lot of getting to know you exposition mixed in with the life and culture of the movie studio, because there's like whole neighborhoods that they've built on lot that they use for different things, and they tear them down and rebuild them all the time. It's a wonderful cultural experience, if you will, to see that sort of thing. So that I haven't seen those. I've seen a couple things that were smaller, but it's like, oh, it's just like this out in LA type thing. So it's if you learn about it, it really is pretty interesting. But you have to have a love for movies that most people seem wanting of. Well, let's see. So, and she claims to hate jazz, and I don't remember how that's relevant to the conversation, like, ever at this point, because he's not like, I'm a jazz guy. But, like, obviously she walked into a jazz club for him playing jazz, because it was during that spotlight moment. But he's like, well, how do you know? And she's like, because really, how do you know that you don't like jazz? So he takes her to listen to some jazz, and they're explaining it, and that's honestly how you should introduce people to things. It's like, hey, I found this great game, let me show it to you, let me talk to you about it. I found this song, I really like it, let me talk to you about it. Or let's listen to it and we can talk about it. So he argues against like the blanket statement of like, I don't like jazz, because jazz is extremely varied. So even if you don't like one artist, you might like another. If you don't like one of his songs or one of his performances, you might like another of his. So like the representation that he gives is that jazz is like a living entity of music, and he acknowledges that it's dying. He knows the world's written it off. She gets a call back, I think during that date or whatever, and then when they walk out, they walk opposite directions. It's a very subtly powerful scene. I've been arguing with myself about what it's actually supposed to mean. That maybe at this point, even though they haven't started, that they live in different worlds as of right now. She's an actress, he's a musician. She just wants to make it and be something. He's living this life where it's like, it doesn't matter if he makes it, it matters that if he's doing what he loves. And I think she's kind of already been there, done that to a small degree, and she wants to make it at this point in the movie. And it's a great looking scene, just them walking away from each other. Yeah, no kissing. So the Pierre Gosling has some slow song, which I apparently didn't care enough about to make a note. I don't remember it, so apparently it's not so great to me. And at the audition there, I wrote so mad at this scene, so I really think it's mad. And they bring her in for about 30 seconds, most of which they just stare at her instead of ever telling her to start. They don't give her direction. I'm assuming from like the lines that like she has lines, but like I don't know how much direction, how much blocking's on there. So really at that point they're there as a formality, so that they can say, oh, we auditioned her and we said no, instead of going, well, you never auditioned her. You never held auditions. Like, I've been told that they do things like that when they have like a big name. Like if Emma Stone actually got a role, they still have to do auditions to try to kind of maintain that secrecy, so that they're scouting talent for future roles and other parts. But they know that they're not going to pick anybody for the role that they're auditioning for at the time. It's really awful. It's a fucking horrible life. I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but a lot of people seem very passionate about pursuing it, so good for them. So at home, a suit comes in. I'm a businessman type suit. Comes in, picks up Mia, who's Emma Stone's character. She's obviously involved, so very much the reason for not kissy Ryan Gosling. And they go to dinner, and Mia's just bored. Gosling texts her. She's very rude because she's texting back on her phone. I don't know. That rule varies based on person. I shouldn't say that. But she apologizes and runs out of the restaurant, around the corner, down the street, to the theater. And then she does like another thing that I think is unequivocally rude. She stands in front of the show to try to look out into the crowd. Now, you'd think this would be a bad tactic because the light's actually coming towards her face, but there's enough reflective off the screen to actually shine on a lot of people's faces. If you don't believe me, turn around in the theater sometime, just look around and see how hard it is to see everybody. So he ends up standing up to wave her over. There's this very cute, reluctant, like, slow, hand-holdy type thing that happens, and it's beautiful. And they get so close, and they get so close, and the movie dies. And I'm telling you, at this point, I would have kept kissing, even if she moved her face. I'm not, this isn't anything to do with Emma Stone or anybody, but there's someone that I felt the need to be like, I gotta put my mouth hole on her mouth hole and move it around, and just so. That movie turning off is not gonna stop me. So I don't have any understanding of why they stop and laugh about anything. But the movie burns up, which is a tragedy, because there's every chance that, like, they can't do anything about it. The best you can do in that scenario is snip and play what you do have left. And unless the projector's on fire, you're probably going to miss a scene or two, but you can probably keep doing it. But that reel's dead, unless you can copy the negatives and splice it back. Millimeter film is really hard to deal with. I'm very happy we live in a digital age now, where you can just kind of edit whatever together, copy, paste, and you don't have to worry about it burning up. Jeez. So Gosling acts like such a little baby about it. He really does throughout the whole movie. He's just kind of like, man, I really wanted to. Sorry, it didn't. Meh. But he doesn't say a damn word. So, like, I guess he's still suave and manly. However that works, I'm not familiar. So at the museum, the blah 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 blah, fun contesting romantic position. Oh, okay. So similar to how they were when they were dancing, they kind of take up positions throughout the museum trip where they're kind of contesting each other. It's, I don't know if it's, you want to call it like dominance or whatnot. And I'm a little fuzzy on the museum scene, but I know it exists. And it's the observatory where they get to, and they relax on that. The contention goes away, and then they're about to kiss. And then the LSD kicks in, and they're flying around. They're going through the stars. They're doing the Wall-E bit where, like, they take fire extinguishers and fly through the air and come back to each other. They're floating, they're dancing, they're having a good time. And then eventually they come down and they're kissing in the chairs. And I think that all of that is just like a visual metaphor for what it feels like to kiss each other. Which I really applaud. We don't get enough of that in movies where we have the visual representation thereof type thing. Usually the best we get is that somebody's staring at somebody else and then their brain goes somewhere else and we get to see their brain go from the moment they see them, and then there's that hard snap back to like, hey Roger, you alright? Hey, Earth to Roger. And I can't get it out of my head. In Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, when Shannon Elizabeth walks in, Jay starts losing his mind and like talking real quiet and just and Silent Bob's literally doing that. And what was it? Oh no, I'm not even gonna go into that. We're gonna stop right there because I don't want to muck up such a beautiful movie with Kevin Smith and Jay and Silent Bob stuff. Oh man. So back home, I'm actually confused because, like, I guess she has two places. She has, like, a place in the suburbs where she was living with the dude, and then she has her room in LA where she's living with the girls, because this is the girls' home at this point that she's back living there. And then Gosling honks to pick her up while she's writing, like, her one-woman show. Which I don't understand, like, the real appeal of doing a one-woman show. It helps that you don't need other people. but I don't know, like it feels limiting, but and it doesn't feel like it's gonna appeal to a large audience either. So we get like a little romance montage between the two of them. We finally go to another jazz club, and Keith enters the picture. And he offers Gosling like a paying job. He declines. Back home, where they're actually living together right now. At this point in the movie, they move in together. So, and I can't remember if it's Gosling's apartment or if like they got a new place. But he starts playing the supporting boyfriend. He doesn't care if other people like her play. It's just do it. Do it. What makes you passionate? Do it. And what people don't realize that's wrong with that in acting versus music, actually it's true in music too, is that the appreciation is a lot of the payoff. So the applause is what they feed off of. It's like, they like me, they really like me, and they want that high from that. And so like just doing the music for the music's sake isn't enough for a lot of people, whereas jazz, it requires a lot of that passion to perform the music in the first place. So it is what it is, what it is. So, and he's listening, Chicken on a Stick. I don't know why that's a discussion they have to have about a jazz club name, but it's an awful fucking name. I just love, it's just peppered with such beautiful little details throughout the movie. But he's listening to her bitch to her mom, essentially, because it's a small apartment. And then he feels so bad that he goes to Keith for the job. And so he gets an audition for the New Jazz Revolution. And it's everything against what he believes in for jazz. And Keith actually makes like this really poignant argument for the new thing versus the old thing where it's the dying jazz. And it's sad, but it's happening, and it's a lot of work, a lot of hours, but a lot of money supposedly, and it's enough to help out with them and their relationship and him, and he can provide for her, and he's making something of himself, and he's getting that appreciation that she would want, but not in the way that she would want it, in a way that she has to worry about him cheating on her, and it's so there's so many problems that like this job brings for him, but finally, like she comes home, he's playing music for her. There's a fantasy montage that happens about her play, about him and the band. He's getting home later and later. She goes to bed without him, wakes up without him. He sleeps without her. She's working crazy all over the living room, and so like, and not having someone in your life to help with that kind of crazy work from home, work everywhere type of mentality is problematic. So like, it's not a good place to be in a relationship, but if it's helping temporarily, you do what you got to do when you got to do it. But you talk to each other, and not being there, not being in the same room, not calling each other, that's the problems that like we're actually seeing not happen on screen, but we know exist because we're familiar with life. So in the concert, he actually starts with the spotlight. His band has a gig that she's attending. The stage lights up. She's surprised at everything that's happening because it's very different than anything she's seen him do with jazz up to this point, which seems wrong that she hadn't seen this before, but whatever. So it's very apparent they haven't been talking as much as they should. She's not happy with all the stage floozies that want to bone him. And maybe she's a little jealous of how the crowd's reacting to his success, because it's something she wants for herself, for her acting, for her play, for a movie career, any of that. We go to fall finally. Yeah, I forgot there's like this seasonal thing that's happening to try to keep us in track of like what's happening. But I think this is the only place I noted it, and I don't think it matters for the most part. But the point is, it's been long enough, and she's not even sure where he is. He's been traveling everywhere doing the tour. It's obviously been a while since they talked, because he's not a tech guy. He doesn't I don't think he's up to date on phones per se, but she misses him, and this is all terrible foreshadowing. It's really awful. Not quality-wise, just sad-wise. But she ends up coming home, and he's trying to surprise her with dinner, and he's like, I thought I had another hour. But she's nervous. I think she's nervous about the play, and he maintains he doesn't care what people think, because he's wanting for her what he wants for himself, because he doesn't understand that she's a different person. And then she kind of badly hinted to him, and he wrongly pursued what she would want for herself in his field. So they're both kind of doing what the other one would do and not happy with the results. You got to realize that everybody's different and work towards meeting both needs. And so, like, but they finally have this explosion of a conversation about the future, about the next 2 years, and they should have had this, like, goddamn, like, almost a year ago at this point, before he started his career, not in the middle of it, because he's trying to explain to her, like, how the whole thing works. It's like, no, we record an album, and we go on tour to promote the album to get enough momentum behind us, so that when we record the next album, that people will care enough to buy it, so that we can go on tour to promote it more. And it's this fucking endless, awful cycle that I can't imagine. So she's like, well, it's always going to be like this then? We're never going to be together. We're never going to have that time. It's blah, if you will. And so they eventually end up arguing about what's currently happening versus what's going to happen. An alarm goes off because they've been arguing long enough that the souffle or pie or whatever the hell it was, maybe it was a chicken pot pie, in the oven burns. He goes to deal with it. She leaves, which is kind of representational of what's been happening with career-wise, like antithetical. No, yeah, career-wise, and then antithetical to what's been happening to the relationship, because he's been the one leaving, she's been the one dealing with everything, the stress that she's going through, and trying to maintain them emotionally, and so now he's left to maintain while she leaves. So it's got a really nice, subtle, metaphorical undertone to it. Fuck, I'm gonna be talking for a while more here. So at the studio, Gosling forgets about a photo shoot that happens to be the same night of her play. Fuck the photo shoot. I would have gone to the play. Fire me. Fine. Now, granted, he tried to plan around it, but he had it in his calendar wrong. Or he had something in his calendar wrong, which is his fault. But the point of it is that there's too much going on, and he forgot what was important. Because he was trying to meet this ideal that was put before him that wasn't even, like, his idea, but... So there's like 12 people in the crowd. His reserve seat's empty. 3 of them are old roommates, so it's a very poor turnout. So he, like, right outside, he shows up when she's leaving, so it's not even, he didn't even make the end of the play. He made it after she did all the, well, there's no cast or crew. Well, there's crew, but, like, after she talked to everybody and she was going home for the night type thing. But she's upset because she owes the theater a lot of money for all the empty seats. She can't pay it because no one showed, obviously. Now, he's made enough money at this point that he could step in and support, but, like, they're 2 individual people in the relationship, and they're managing their money themselves, and maybe he's spending too much on travel and apartment and all this, and maybe some other stuff, I don't know. But, like, you would think with his big music career he'd be able to compensate for it. But even more to that point, she's devastated that she not only isn't as important as she wants to believe she could be, but, like, she's thinks of the play as a disaster, as her final attempt. So she ends up going home to her parents' house or whatever it is, out in not the country, but the suburbs. He ends up playing like piano for a wedding because I don't know if he quit the band or not. I'm being honest. Maybe he's just doing a favor for a friend. But he ends up answering a phone call for her that's going to the apartment. So it's not like he stole her phone or anything. He's excited. He drives out to the house that she's staying at to get her to do the audition. They argue about it. And then she has like this small moment of clarity, which I thought was really sweet. Oh, you shush. What is going on? You're fine. And I really love it. I really like that there. It's like, how did you even find me? It's like she's just that flabbergasted about the situation that she's been placed in. And he's like, the house in front of the library. And then he basically leaves. But it shows how well he knows her and like how much he cares about her. That's the position that he can take. So the next day, 8 a.m., he drives up and honks the horn, and like she doesn't quite get there in time, so he starts to leave, and then she shows up. It's back to the like contextual thing that like where they met. It's really like they're starting over, because he's really trying to do something for her in the relationship, and it's not that he hasn't done that before, but like it's honestly to me it's the practical equivalent of a romantic gesture. It's like, this is something good for you. It might jumpstart your career. I want it for you emotionally and financially. So we're doing this. So because the audition, it's a super professional audition. It's a proper callback from the director having seen the show that she did. And wanting to build a character around her, so they're like, just tell us a story, essentially. So it's really a dream come true for anybody put in that position, if they like them. So instead of telling them a story, she sings it, and we see the spotlight happen. It fades to black, it zooms in as it crescendos, and then fades back to reality as we leave, and kind of cliffhangers. Because we don't know. Like, and honestly, Emma Stone probably doesn't know. Or Mia. Outside, Gosling's all confident. She's questioning it. They discuss them. And they're distracted by the view. Because they end up driving up to their little bench from earlier. And it's a very sweet scene. But we zoom forward 5 years later. Because, honestly, like, there's not much to say about them being there, as there isn't one. But at the cafe, Mia's now the big star, getting coffee from the baristas. Club, Gosling's tuning a piano, prepping for his big opening. Mia comes home to a guy and her daughter. I'm gonna zip through this because it's sad and I can't take it. He's got her face on the side of his club with a movie poster. So it's not like he's unaware. He sees her. He knows that she's a big deal. And he sees her face every day, which is sad. And Mia and her husband drive somewhere. Apparently she's been in New York for a while, so she's obviously a serious actress, doing both coasts. And they're driving dinner, and they're just like, let's just go, get off this exit, let's go. And then they eat. And then, for whatever reason, I think it's the husband, honestly. It's like, hey, let's do this. Let's randomly walk into this place. It seems happening. And it's called Seb's, which you walk in, you see the famous stool, you see all Gosling's jazz crap, and they lock eyes. There's silence. If you want to imagine the silence, there's silence on both ends. It's literally two people listening to each other breathe, not breathe on the phone. He starts playing. It's beautifully somber. We see the spotlight fade happen, and Mia shares it with him. In that moment, they're both taken away to a place where it's just them and the music and the experience, and they flash back to the first time Mia saw him play, and they start living through this other timeline where they did everything right. They kiss immediately. They fall in love. It's Life is Like a Play, the musical, oh God, it's so beautiful. It's such a great series of scenes, and like, so I can't even like pick it out as my favorite part of the movie per se, but it's so good. And to me, this is the natural end of the movie, just the imagination of it. In fact, if we cut the part afterwards off entirely, that might be what moves the ending from good to great for me. But we have this romance montage where everything's lovely. Even her play, they exit through a stage door into like an unfinished set, and they just walk through to where it's finally finished and start performing, which I thought was a really nice touch. And they're essentially playing out the beginning of the movie. She gets that one audition. They go to Paris. He opens a club there. She's an actress there. Everything is lovely. We fade to a spotlight silhouette on a trumpet player. We fade in. And I don't even know what that's supposed to mean, because that's not even sensible for them. I would have imagined that they share a spotlight. That would have been perfect. But they did beautiful in-sync choreography where they're just perfect together. Complimentary versus controversial or contextual. So if you go and you watch the scene at the bench and you watch this scene where they're dancing together, you can see a difference in the attitude of the dancing that really puts it over the top. It's fantastic. They even have like some home footage of what could have been. Fast forwarding to the same traffic scene, wandering into a club. It's another musician playing on the same song at the same club, and then we cut back to Seb's, and then there's applause finally that he gets from his spotlight, and he has his moment in his club on his opening night. Finally, granted, it took him a lot longer to get there to do what he wanted to do, one way or the other. Mia takes a moment to come back. Her and her husband leave. And she pauses at the door to give him one look back, and they lock eyes again. And to me, that ending says a lot. It says a lot with very little indeed. To me, that says that, like, that love is love. Like, they're not the ones that ended up together. They're not the ones that had kids together. She's married to another guy. Who knows who he's diddling on the side, if anyone. Maybe he just walks around the corner, beats it to her poster. I don't know. But in that moment, they, even if they're not in love right then, they recount the experience of love that they had at the time, and they share that connection. And while they don't have enough love in them to pursue a relationship, and who knows, maybe that's the sequel, La La Land 2, Destructive Boogaloo, I don't know. In that moment, they have a connection, and they know that, like, there's that potential there. And they're both happy for each other. They're both sad they're not together, but happy that they've both made it, if you will say. And it's probably the happiest ending you could have without them getting together themselves. So, like, I think it's a beautiful ending. I think it's really great. And a lot of people I was watching with over on Rabbit/Camera, honestly didn't enjoy that aspect of it. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's amazing. I get that it's not happy, but it can still be good. And movies that, like, aren't necessarily happy but have great endings. Event Horizon, Sweeney Todd, Looking for a Friend for the End of the World. Perfect ending. I added something to that perfect ending list, and for the life of me, I cannot remember what it is, which is sad. But I think that's all for me. Almost 50 minutes now. Have a wonderful La La Land of a day from us here at #WeAreMovieClub. If you want to see anything else we're up to, go ahead and click the annotations and they'll take you to other channels. Thanks for watching.